السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. لعله رجل متعدد الأبعاد معروف برشاقة ريشته كرسام مبدع، بيد أنه يتفوق في التمثيل وصناعة الأفلام براعة، حتى صار معروفا من قبل معجبيه بعمر الشريف القادم. هو الفنان والمخرج والأمين العام للمجلس الوطني الباكستاني للفنون جمال شاه، نتحدث معه اليوم من الداخل. معكم زينب صفار، تابعونا. لعل صناعة السينما الباكستانية خلال أيام ذروتها كانت بمستوى بوليوود وحتى هوليوود، وكانت تصنف كرابع أكبر صناعة للأفلام الروائية في العالم بحلول السبعينيات من القرن الماضي بحسب الخبراء. وعلى الرغم من قلة الموارد والمعدات في أواخر الأربعينيات، إلا أن هذه الصناعة نمت لتصبح بارزة وحديث المهتمين والمتابعين للشأن الفني، حيث تعد الفترة ما بين عام 1959 و 1977 العصر الذهبي لصناعة السينما الباكستانية. بالنسبة إلى جمال شاه الفنان الباكستاني المتعدد المواهب وصانع الأفلام، فإنه يرى الفن والإبداع الثقافي ضرورة حيوية لأي مجتمع. هو يشرح كيف يكون الفن والثقافة موردا لإشراك الناس مع محيطهم على نحو حاسم وعاملا أساسيا في تشجيعهم على تطوير فهم حميم للتطور المجتمعي، لأن الفن يتمتع بقدرة لا تضاهى على إعلام الناس بالتحديات القديمة والجديدة، وهو ما يجعلهم صانعي قرار مستنيرين بشكل أفضل، وسيصبحون قادرين على تقديم مساهمة إيجابية ومثمرة في حياتهم وحياة من حولهم. جمال شاه الفنان الأسطورة المتعدد المواهب عبر الأجيال، والكاتب ومخرج الأفلام، والرسام الشهير والناشط الاجتماعي، وإضافة إلى كل ذلك المدير العام لمعرض الفنون الوطني الباكستاني، يحدثنا عن هذا الصرح المعني بكل ما يمت إلى الفنون بصلة، والذي أسس لتبوء عملية تطور الفنون في باكستان، وأين أصبحت صناعة الأفلام الباكستانية اليوم.
Pakistan National Council of the Arts is supposed to be the apex art body in Pakistan, which has a very vast agenda of not only documenting, preserving, developing, but also promoting and propagating all fields of art, visual and performing arts. PNCA was set up, formed in 1973, and this building was inaugurated in 2007. PNCA has the responsibility of looking after the entire spectrum of visual arts and performing arts, which is painting, sculpture, miniature painting, calligraphy, and all other plastic art forms, and also music, theater, dance. These are the areas that we deal with, and also cinema. So the idea of PNCA is to, in the true sense, propagate the art and culture of Pakistan. And Pakistan is a country where the story of art and culture starts almost 9,500 years back with Mahargarh, which incidentally is in my province, Balochistan.
Yes.
And we have Harappa, we have Mohenjo-daro, Indus Valley civilization, Gandhara, and so many other influences brought in by different sets of people who came here, and some assimilated, some left, but each group left their very, very valuable imprints, which makes the cultural tapestry of Pakistan very rich.
Right.
And it was very rightfully referred to as the melting pot of cultures and religions. I'm talking about the ancient history till this date. But when Pakistan was liberated, or the partition took place, after that, in my opinion, the importance of this ancient cultural heritage was subsided, because more attention or more focus was given to a narrative that started from 1947. And I think somewhat also based on insecurity. I personally feel that this heritage, whether it was pagan or Hindu or Zoroastrian or Christian or Buddhist, all is part of our tradition.
Exactly, and it tints
of heritage,
actually the culture
and it enriches us, which is why our indigenous cultural narrative, if you examine it, it is full of beautiful mechanisms for conflict resolutions, for peace building,
together.
Amalgamation, for bringing people closer to each other, for plurality. So this country used to be a very, very generous country, very full of respect for diversity, for all sorts of thoughts, and accommodating. And there came a time where all this was, totally dismantled. And we artists have to rebuild a deconstructed or dismantled cultural narrative.
Ziya ul-Haq, you mean?
Yeah, with Ziya ul-Haq, unfortunately, Ziya ul-Haq allowed himself to be used by the Western powers, America and others. And in the 70s, late 70s, extremist elements from all over Islamic world were brought here. They were given shelter, they were trained to fight a so-called jihad against Russia.
The Soviet Union back then, yes.
And that jihad was also very fictitious. It had no real roots at all. But what happened was that America eventually defeated Russia because it weakened it, using our resources, our land, our people, and in the process, the very peaceful, peace-loving people became very intolerant because they were brought up with a very, I would say, narrow ideology of Islam. They were taught the wrong notion of jihad. And Afghanistan was destroyed, and part of Pakistan, including KPK and Balochistan, they were destabilized. And we, the artists, have to reconstruct the dismantled cultural narrative now. It's a very big task.
How did you manage to do this, sir?
I don't think we have succeeded so far, but we are trying to combat it.
You are in the process.
We are in the process of combating the extremist ideologies. We are trying to engage people and tell them that art and culture has no animosity with religion. Art is not haram in religion, in Islam. So that is the narrative that we want to promote in Pakistan. And PNCA has been given the most important role, and we are trying to do these things through exhibitions, through festivals, through concerts, through publications. And,
yes, and you also try to transmit the idea, this notion that you talked about, and the stories of this fictitious, as you said, so-called jihad and whatever, through also the content of the movies, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay. Because in my opinion, relevant cinema can only be the one which is about yourself, about your conditions, and it's probing the root sources of extremism or intolerance, or good or bad or whatever. It should be a cinema that promotes critical relationship with oneself.
Now, what is the most prominent form of art here in Pakistan?
In Pakistan, I would say that music is a field where we can conveniently say that Pakistan has tremendous talent in music, because Pakistan, the cultural diversity of Pakistan presents us with a lot of diversity in music. You go to KPK, the music is different, the rhythm pattern is different. In Balochistan it is different, the scales are different. In Punjab it is different, in Sindh it is different. But all the folklore is about love and secular thought, about, you know, celebrating life, about bringing people closer to each other. So music is a strong point. And then you can also talk about the dances along with music. The folk culture has tremendous dances, and our visual art tradition is also very good. Cinema used to be very a thriving industry in Pakistan till mid-70s. Pakistan used to make over 150 films every year, and there used to be about 1,500 cinema houses till the mid-70s.
Which was the golden era of the filmmaking.
It was the golden era. But now, in current Pakistan, where the population has grown manifold, we are left with only 130 cinema houses, which is very bad. It's a shame. Although there's a lot of talent in cinema also. Then our television is strong.
What is the reason behind this, deterioration in the status of the cinema and the filmmaking?
Deterioration started with Ziaul Haq.
Okay.
Ziaul Haq, the dictator.
Censorship, you mean?
The dictator was very strict. He, I would say, was in some way anti-art. He was very, his policies were very, very hostile towards the arts. And that was the time when our most important classical dancer, Nahid Siddiqui, she left Pakistan and she spent all her youthful years in Europe. She was one of the topmost dancers. And likewise, there was very strict censorship on the content of music, the content of television plays, and cinema. Cinema was never promoted. Cinema is an art form which is the most accessible art form that can entertain and at the same time educate people. And it was independent. It was not easy for the state to turn cinema into an official mouthpiece. Therefore, it was neglected, never paid attention to, and television was promoted a lot because television became the mouthpiece of the government, every regime. So cinema deteriorated because of that neglect.
Allow me to stop you, sir, now for a short break, and then after the break we're going to discuss and detail on your most recent movie in the making, which is Cut, and your other movies that you have done, but after the break. إذن فاصل قصير ونعود، لا تذهبوا بعيدا. جمال شاه الفنان المخضرم والمتعدد المواهب وصانع الأفلام الباكستانية والرسام الشهير والناشط الاجتماعي ومدير معرض الفنون الوطني الباكستاني يحدثنا على نحو مفصل عن فيلمه الأخير كات الذي ما يزال قيد التصوير.
My most recent film which is my second film. My first film was about the valley of Swat, which was taken over by the Taliban, and they had made life miserable for people. So it was based on a few true stories that I collected from the area, and the stories of people who try to, retaliate, to try to fight the extremism.
to resist this
to resist, yeah. It was the story of resistance against Taliban, and it was called Revenge of the Worthless. This film that my second film is called Cut. Cut is about the Pakistan film industry. At one level, it pays a tribute to the past icons of Pakistani cinema, and at another level, it's about the struggle of a filmmaker who's trying to help revive the film industry in Pakistan. And the main focus of the film is a studio, which is going to be grabbed by a very big property tycoon and turned into a mall. So the studio owner, who's a veteran actress, is trying to save the studio in order to support the film fraternity. And this director joins hands with her. The director is also a very famous television personality whose program have been winning awards repeatedly, and he has a highly rated show. But he quits the show and starts making this film. So the film is about the process of making this film, where there are other forces, adversary forces, who are trying to stop
Who succeeds?
the process.
Who wins?
Eventually, of course, the protagonist succeeds.
It's not only movies, sir, but also being an actor, you performed in many TV series, as well as a renowned miniseries titled Traffic.
Yes.
It's a work that transcends borders. It's produced by Britain's Channel 4 about illegal drugs and the role of Pakistan, Germany, and Britain in its production, transportation, and usage. Traffic was nominated for 6 BAFTA.
11. It won 11 awards.
It
for
won
6
11,
BAFTA, yes.
Yeah, 6 BAFTA, but it won many awards.
Yes.
What made it so successful? Is it the storyline, the actors, the technique?
Traffic was a very relevant story because it was about the realities of that time when Mujahideens were being promoted by the West, and they were involved in drug trades. So the drug started then and engulfed entire Pakistan, and from here it went to Europe also. So the story revolved around the drug trail, but also discussed the realities of the time, like extremism, like Mujahideen, like Afghan Jihad and other things. So that was a very, very good work for in my career, because that was the first time I worked with a foreign crew. And because of that series, then I was offered many, many films. I did K2 was K2 was another Hollywood film, and I was offered many more films, including a film with Umar Sharif. This was called it was The Return of Sando Khan, which starred Umar Sharif, Kabir Bedi, myself, but due to recession it didn't take off.
Right. Now, an observer notes that there are constraints on filmmakers in a country where conservative religious groups hold disproportionate power, and where criticizing the authorities can lead to intimidation or censorship. How free today is the film industry in Pakistan?
Well, as far as censorship goes, I think we are in the best of times. The censorship is very relaxed, and that's why we are able to tackle or produce stories that would be impossible 20 or 25 years ago. So this, I think, is a good time for us, for the filmmakers. It is just that we don't have facilities.
So this is one of the challenges.
We don't have enough cinema houses to showcase our work in. We don't get finances easily, because the banks don't finance films. So the film industry is struggling. But the government is going to announce some measures soon in support of cinema.
Have you rallied for such kind of proposition?
I have, yes. We've recently, in PNCA, at this platform, we held a National Artists Convention for 3 days, and I invited artists from all fields.
200 artists from
more than 300.
Yeah, more than 300.
They came here, congregated here for 3 days. They discussed their problems about the status of art, about the status of cultural infrastructure, and the Artist Benevolent Fund, etc., etc. And they ended up making a charter of demand for the government. So that demand was presented to the government, and I'm hopeful that the Prime Minister will announce some important measures.
What was the outcome of such kind of discussions that you held for 3 days here?
The outcome was this charter of demand, because all of them got together and they prioritized their demands. The most important demand was for the country to have a national culture policy. Sure. And then the development of cultural infrastructure, because that is linked with the development of artists also. Once a culture infrastructure is developed, there will be more activities, more jobs, and
To what extent do you believe, sir, that films can help spread a message for peace?
As I said earlier, the film is the most accessible means of entertainment and education. It can motivate people, it can empower people, it can even urge you to, start a struggle. And it's the best way of communication.
Exactly.
Communicating ideas. It can project your national image. It can
inculcate
work as a peace builder.
ideas
Yes.
too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Now, Jamal Shah, what next?
I'm trying to restructure this place. I'm trying to hire people who are very, very relevant to this field. At the moment, we have a lot of people, at this organization, but not most of them are relevant. We need people who are directly connected with visual arts, performing arts, and various fields of performing arts, and also trained people, young, imaginative, full of energy, so that they can, undertake bigger challenges tomorrow.
Inshallah. From Pakistan, Mr. Jamal Shah, veteran artist, writer, filmmaker, painter and social worker, and Director General of the Pakistan National Council of the Arts, the PNCA, where we are now. Many thanks indeed for joining us.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Always welcome, sir. It's our pleasure, sir. إذا لقاء جديد في الأسبوع المقبل مع ضيف جديد وقضية جديدة، ودائما من الداخل. للمزيد من التواصل بريدنا theinside@almayadeen.net، وصفحتنا على الفيسبوك من الداخل. من كل فريق عمل من الداخل، من كل الميادين من إسلام آباد، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.